A while back, my D&D players were about to face a Banshee, and so I thought, I'll paint up a Banshee mini. I didn't have one, but I did find this cool Loot Studios mini that I painted up and used as a Banshee, and I'm going to show you how I did that this week on Short Rest Studios. Hey, adventurers, welcome back to another episode of Short Rest Studios. My name is Judd, and this week we're back to some more mini painting. I'm not an expert painter by any means, which if you've watched any of my painting videos in the past, you probably have realized that. I hope that in addition to maybe helping you learn some new techniques to help you get better as a painter, that I also help you understand that you don't have to be the Leonardo da Vinci of miniatures to enjoy painting minis and to paint minis that are ready for your gaming tabletop and that will make your players go, wow, that looks so cool on the table. That's my goal with this video this week. I did some really basic techniques and I painted up this Loot Studios Ghost of Brienne Crimson mini and made her look like a Banshee. She could still be used as a ghost, and I think she came out pretty cool. Here's how I did it. I'm gonna begin with ultramarine blue and black, mix those together to get kind of a navy blue, and that's gonna be my first layer. This dark blue is gonna go on her clothes, which are the bulk of the miniature, and I just wanna get in all those little cracks and crevices, cover it really well with this dark blue, because these Loot Studios minis have lots of details, which makes them a lot of fun to paint and a lot of fun to see the final outcome, but also difficult. Now we're going to black and dead white to get a gray, which we are now going to paint her hair. And now this dark green I'm going to use to paint her skin. So this is the first layer on the skin. The idea is in the end, we're going to paint over everything with white highlights to give her that pale ghostly look, but we want these undertones of different colors to show through. Now we're going to pull out Stonewall Gray. I really like this gray color. It's got a little bit of brown to it, so it has kind of a warm, earthy feel. And that's what we're going to use to paint this tombstone that the Ghost of Brienne Crimson is passing through. It's a neat little detail. I really like this part of the design of this model. And I could have gone with just mixing my own gray, but I'm actually a big fan of having as many colors as I can right there that I don't have to mix, because I don't really know color theory that well when it comes to paint. So we're gonna lighten up that gray we made earlier with a little bit of white and use that on something in a bit. But first we're gonna take out some earth and paint the ground with it, because it's earth and that's what color it ought to be. Now it's time for everybody's favorite cheater technique, dry brushing. No, really, dry brushing can be really beautiful when you do it right. So we're gonna take some of that lighter gray we made and we're gonna just bring out the curls in her hair with that, a very light dry brush. And now onto ultramarine blue and dead white to make a lighter blue this time instead of a darker blue. That's how that works. And we're going to dry brush that onto her dress to bring out all those frills and folds and really start to highlight all the details of this beautiful model. And now we're pulling out the dead white because it's time for that moment of sheer terror that we've all been waiting for. We're going to try to paint the eyes. You know, you really should paint the eyes before you paint anything else, because then you can go back and, you know, cover up your mistakes. But I never do that. In this case, though, it'll be okay because I'm actually putting a lot more colors on after I paint these eyes, and I think I did okay. So I get out the goblin green, and now we're going to begin highlighting her classic Greek features. I mean, let's face it, guys, she does look a little bit like the Statue of Liberty. I'm hitting all the high points on her face, nose, cheekbones, brow, and I also want to make sure that I get to the hands, which are the only other exposed skin on the model, and highlight the lines of her fingers, wrist, things like that. Her lovely, delicate hands. I don't know why I made that voice, that was weird. Now I'm going back to my dead white and I'm putting some much more precise highlights on the curls in her hair. The dry brushing actually creates kind of a broad highlight of sorts, but then you go back and add a more refined highlight that brings out the really high points and looks a little more like light reflecting, and so you're able to just see a variety of details at different levels of depth because of the variations in color. Look at those lovely locks. Again, weird. And now we get out the elfic flesh and mix it with a little bit of our goblin green for another step up in the skin highlights. Not sure elfic is a word, but there you go. It's the same concept as those previous skin highlights. We're just being more precise to accentuate more detail. Adventurers, if you're enjoying this video, it would really help me out if you'd hit that like button. And if you're feeling especially generous, I have a buy me a coffee link. You can give me a couple of bucks just to help sustain the channel. You can find that link in the comments and in the description. I appreciate it. Now we're mixing Stonewall Gray and Dead White to highlight the edges and corners on that tombstone, and this is where that thing really begins to pop. I love this. I don't know why. I think I like this part more than highlighting the hair or even the clothes, but this thing just starts to look much more realistic to me as I begin to put those highlights on. I think it's starting to look pretty darn cool. And now we're going to dry brush a little bit of dead white onto that tombstone for some more highlights. This will feel a little too bright at this point, but we will take care of that in a later step. For now though, we're going to mix a little bit of white into that lighter blue that we made earlier and begin highlighting her dress. And this part, to be perfectly honest, took forever because, like most Loot Studios models, the Ghost of Brienne Crimson has a lot of detail, and most of that detail is in her dress, so it really did take me a long time. However, it was worth it in the end because I think it looks fantastic. That's not tooting my own horn, guys. It's just the design of this model. If you paint it right, or even halfway right, it looks really great. She has these draping sleeves, and I really felt like those were going to be difficult to highlight the way I did the ruffles on the dress, so I just decided to dry brush a little bit of that color on. And now I'm taking some straight up dead white, very thin, and I'm going over all those ruffles again. So this is kind of the final step. This is where I'm making her look more ghostly by putting white pretty much all over. Here I'm going back to Elfic Flesh to do the same type of highlight on her skin. Very thin. I just decided I didn't want it to be the same white that I used on her clothes. I just wanted it to look a little more fleshy. You'll notice that her bodice is still blue. I actually painted that silver because I decided it'd be cool if she was wearing a breastplate, and I highlighted it with a brighter silver, but I missed getting footage of that step, so sorry. So here's the step where I tone down the brightness of the tombstone and the ground. And it's basically the same thing I do anytime I'm painting stone of any kind when I make dungeon tiles or anything like that. I paint things with a lot of highlights, so it looks a little bright, but then you go back and you add this black wash and it really tones down some of those bright colors, evens things out. You still have the variations, but it's not so bright. It looks a little more grungy, a little more realistic. Get out the bloody red at this point because I decided I hadn't punished myself enough. And I'm gonna now paint her lips red. Honestly, I looked at her and thought she needs something, so I decided to give her a little bit of a makeup job. And now we're taking some of that goblin green, and I'm actually just putting some rings around her eyes that will make her eyes stand out a little bit more from the rest of her skin and give her a little more of a haunted look. And now I'm fixing some mistakes. Now I'm getting some black because I really hate myself, and I'm painting on eyebrows. And there is the beauty shot, ladies and gentlemen. Just take a moment and admire. I think she came out great. Does she look professional? Probably not, but she looks real good on the table, and I had a lot of fun painting her, and I believe that this is a great looking miniature. Thanks for joining me on another adventure as I painted Loot Studios' Ghost of Brienne Crimson miniature. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please do me a favor. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can keep up with what's happening next on Short Rest Studios. In the meantime, take a look at this video, and I will see you next time on Short Rest Studios.